Evan Copps has a question about being impatient. I've been struggling with my impatience lately, he says. I get annoyed that everything is taking longer than it should. How do you get yourself to stop being so impatient? I am stupidly impatient. I get very upset about things taking longer than they should. And that phrasing, "than it should," is really a particular way in which I'm triggered. So specifically, if I need one specific tool to do a task and I can't find that tool, ooh, and I know that I was using it, that makes me crazy. So being delayed by things that shouldn't be delaying me, that gets me nuts. Now, I'm also cognizant that getting upset about something taking longer than it should for me is a sense of entitlement. Is a sense of making is unpredictable. It's improvisation. It's triage. It's ever-changing. And sometimes you start a day knowing you're doing a project where you don't know how it's going to go. And you're like, okay, I'm in that mindset today. I don't know how this is going to go. But other days, and it's really specifically when I come in and I'm like, I want to achieve X. That's when I'm not in the moment. I'm in the global moment. I'm in the future. And I'm not in the present. And I'm getting all pissed off. I mean, frankly, it feels like I feel like a child at that moment. Like my anger feels like the anger of a child. Yeah, and it's problematic. So I examine that entitlement. I examine that, the real trick, as far as I'm concerned, about growing older and dealing with the emotionality that you have around things in your life is to understand that I can understand those emotions and where they come from. That doesn't necessarily help. It doesn't make that emotion any less hot. And the real trick is letting that emotion sit on me and pass, right? Like, is this an emergency? Is there something I must do here? Am I in any danger? If none of those are true, then what am I so upset about? What are the stakes? And we're going to talk about stakes later, too. All right. Evan, it's a process, man. I'll tell you what happened specifically around my emotionality in this shop after coming back here for 6 weeks. And I might have even talked about this in the last live stream. I come back to the cave. I've been here like 1 day a week, 2 days a week for 6 weeks. And I got some stuff done, but now I'm back and I want that endorphin rush of having completed something awesome. That's a specific rush for me. I want to be pleased by an object that I bring it home and look at it and stare at it and feel it out. And I'm greedy for that experience. That's the way it feels to me. And then it's very hard for me to concentrate because I'm all over the place. I'm like, maybe I should do this one. Maybe I should do that one. There's so many projects that I'm like dying to tackle. And many of them are like 2-3 days and I'm still sort of playing catch up. And so it feels, yeah. But lately, I have been a little bit better at experiencing those emotions and not doing anything with them, except experiencing them. I mean, that's the thing, is that moment of extreme heat, I want to go do something. I want to blame somebody. I want to yell about it. I don't do those things. I insulate most of the people in my life from those emotions. Right? I insulate people from those emotions because they're irrational and they don't belong in that space. But still, they're happening to me. And so lately, I think I've been a little bit better about what my son calls Q-tip. Quit taking it personally. Because, I was watching a show recently in which they brought up the concept of the second arrow. And it might be Silo, which is great. I'm really enjoying Silo on Apple TV. It's written by my friend Hugh Howey. And I mean, Rebecca Ferguson is one of the great actresses right now. She's just incredible. But, sorry, Second Arrow. the Buddhist says that when you get shot with an arrow, there are two arrows. The first arrow hurts. And then you start thinking about the fact that you were shot by an arrow and you're mad about it because it hurts. And that's the second arrow. And so my wife and I have a call and response sometimes. Last night, for instance, I was coming in from the deck and I stubbed my toe, just a small stub, but one of those stubs of the toe that really, really hurts. And I'm sitting there like, and I'm just like breathing through it and kind of taking it in. And my wife said, nice second arrow management. And that's that. We talk about the second arrow. So when you're impatient and you're angry that it's not going as it should, that's second arrow anger. You didn't just break something. You're just upset about the delay. You think there shouldn't be a delay. This is that should thing, right? Anyway, the Dharma has so much for us. Okay, let's see. Worship models underway says, I'm glad we're back to the normal usernames. We were at a bunch of numbers at the end of a lot of names recently. Okay, Worship Models Underway says, have you considered getting a friend for Maggie, my dog Maggie, who you can see in We Walk Dogs, and they just walked dogs with Dave Bautista, who's got 3 or 4 adopted pits that are just so sweet. I'm a dog person. I love all dogs and all dog people. I'm bonded to all of them. Maggie is, thanks for checking in on Maggie. She's doing great. She just had a malignant tumor removed from her elbow. She had a large tumor. We went through a process of 3 or 4 weeks of medication to make that tumor a little smaller. But it's tough with dogs when they have a tumor on an elbow, because if it's right here, you can cut the tumor out and you can sew up the skin, because dogs have a lot of skin. Well, you know, my terrier has a lot of skin there. It's easy. But on the arm, there's not a lot of skin. So they did the most fascinating thing. They, let me grab a Sharpie. They went to both sides of the cut. So if here's the cut, and actually, the tumor has to pull out like that much, right? They ended up doing this thing where they did staggered incisions like this on both sides of the wound. And that allowed them to effectively accordion the skin. I'm sorry if this is gross, but I find it totally fascinating. They're able to accordion the skin to seal the wound, and then it's not one big wound that's healing, it's a whole bunch of small ones. And she has recovered spectacularly. She is 15, she still bounces around like a puppy, she'll still bark at you, and she's doing wonderfully. We have considered getting a friend for her. Huxley died, her brother died in January of 20. We did it at the house. It was one of the more remarkable moments of my life. And I'm mostly sad about, well, I'm sad about losing Huxley. That was awful. And the first thing I felt upon him passing was gratitude. Seriously, I was really surprised by it, but it was like this wash of gratitude of like, I can't believe I got to spend 13 years with this amazing being. And I will feel the same about Maggie. But we have not gotten her a friend yet. And this is because my wife, my partner, Julia, had a dog named Dennis, who was a little bit bigger than Maggie, but similar kind of terrier when she was young. And at one point late in his life, they got a friend for Dennis, and Dennis lost his ever-loving mind. He was like, he went into depression. And like, that can happen sometimes. Yeah, dogs are very emotional beings. When we put dogs under fMRI, as a couple of researchers have done, and we watch their emotional responses to stimuli, dogs have very similar emotional layouts in their brains, i.e., when a dog hears or experiences something pleasurable to it, like its owner's voice or a picture of its owner, the same parts of its brain light up as ours. So all that stuff that skeptics have been saying forever, like it's just conditioning, your dog doesn't like you, you're just the food source, all bullshit. They actually have genuine emotional landscape, and I'm grateful for them. Wait, what was I talking about though? Right, so we're nervous about getting a friend for Maggie only to have her be like, yeah, this doesn't work for me. And then what do? We don't want to do that. So we still occasionally surf local rescues, and nothing's come up. And if something does come up, we would, carefully introduce Maggie to this dog and have them meet. Actually, when we got Maggie at the old Pets Unlimited up on Divisadero, they required at least 2 visits before we were able to adopt her. They had to see her meet with our other dog, and that was Huxley, and they had to see her with our kids, the boys, who were like, they were really young. I actually found footage of the first day we met Maggie. It was really sweet. That's all the Maggie news. Thanks for joining us for the Maggie news. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support us even further, you can by becoming a tested member. Details are, of course, below, but it includes all sorts of perks, and we're building them all the time. You get advanced word and behind-the-scenes photos of some of our projects. Questions, you get to ask direct questions during my live streams, and we have some members-only videos, including the Adam real-time series of unbroken, unedited shots of me working here in the shop. They are weirdly meditative. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one.